reins over hand the reins over to Terry.
Thanks, Lori. Pretty excited about the presentation today. As you can see on the screen, we've called this Ideas and Insights for Increasing Revenue, Decreasing Costs, and Gaining Efficiencies in this New Reality. Certainly this new reality is very, very difficult to predict. It's changing every day, and we've dealt with it over the last 5-6 months now. And so dealing with the pandemic and the realities of it is really what we're trying to achieve in our webinar today. So I want to start off with kind of setting it up, what we've seen on how has COVID impacted the economy and our print markets. And in the beginning, what we saw was this dead stop, if you will, on travel. It just has slumped. You know, people were locked down, hunkered down. So when you look at this chart here, you talk about airlines being negatively impacted, hotels, lodging, certainly cruise ships and cruises, online travel agencies as a result, and also rental cars as a result of people not traveling, all negatively impacted when COVID hit. Restaurant sales also plummeted, you know, not just fine dining, casual dining, but even fast food, because they weren't able to have the restaurant open, even though they were able to have the drive-thrus open. But you see the counterpoint there that delivery services, whether it's Grubhub or Uber Eats or whatever, all of a sudden went up significantly over what had. So we saw this real step change between travel and restaurant sales. Shopping basically went down overall, particularly at brick and mortar. We all learned in a hurry, if we hadn't already, how to order online and take advantage of Amazon and other online retailers. But you can see here, every aspect of retail, from department stores, jewelry stores, footwear, specialty stores, you know, everything really got negatively impacted as a result of the COVID pandemic. But on the other hand, some segments are actually doing pretty well. And actually, maybe you predicted this, maybe not, but bicycle sales are up 63% in June 2020 versus the same time last year. And that's as a result of people just wanting to get out and be out in this COVID impacted world. So who would have predicted that bicycle sales would go up? Paddle sports up by 56%, golf equipment up by 51%. And camping equipment up by 31%. So even though some industries were sort of devastated and hit very hard, some segments actually have done well as a result of the pandemic. We also see that some of the brands, here we have Starbucks, are adjusting their strategies. Although Starbucks plans to close up to 400 locations in the US and Canada over the next 18 months, it's actually opening roughly 300 new North American stores to specialize in carry out and pickup options. So they're really adjusting their strategy as a result of COVID and perhaps the shorter term, if not the longer term impact of dealing with the situation that we're dealing with. Other businesses are also seeing growth. For instance, O'Reilly Auto Parts. In a downturn in the economy, in a recession as a result of the unemployment, you know, normally people hang onto their cars longer and fix them. O'Reilly opened up 123 net new stores in the first 6 months of 2020, a new distribution facility, and plans to open 150 to 165 stores this year. So we are seeing some brands adjusting their strategy and others that are seeing growth. Hobby Lobby is another one. We look at the boom of arts and crafts popularity during the pandemic, and they're opening stores as well. So how has the pandemic impacted the print industry as a result of these economic shifts or some of these impacts? In this presentation, which was part of the virtual Inkjet Summit a couple weeks, if not a month back, I believe, Marco Bohr with IT Strategies presented this webinar or session event. And in his impact of COVID was an accelerating decline in offset. And IT Strategies looks at letter size pages. So this is not the value in dollars, but this is really looking at the number of letter size pages, and this is based on the North American market. So you can see in the longer term decline of offset going back to 2000 11 or 12. It's been a sort of a steady decline. And you see the green bar, which is inkjet, showing some growth over that period, but modest. And toner on top also showing somewhat of a steady pattern, although declining. But then you see this big drop they're predicting into 2021 and then restabilizing out to 2024. But when you look at the tail of that particular graph, you see that the decline in offset is modest at that point once it takes the big dip, but the growth in inkjet is actually significant. And you're going to see this in these letter-sized pages. So a shift from traditional offset printing production to more toner, more inkjet, with inkjet being the clear winner. And the bottom line, as he put it in this presentation at the summit, was that there's really no choice but to plan and reinvest if his prediction is true, because labor will become a bigger and bigger problem. Our offset press operators are aging, many of them 55 to 60 years old. They will be retiring. There's not a lot of offset press operators coming up through the ranks that are going to be able to take their place. Certainly with the competition for labor, that automation will become even more critical. And with this overall print volume decline, it means we all really need to plan and reinvent ourselves, if you will, to succeed in this post-COVID world that we're headed for. So how has the pandemic impacted your business? With the people within GAA or the population overall, what we found is there were three kind of buckets that I would put people in. Those businesses that were hit really hard. I mean, if you did a lot of work for cruise lines or hotels or airlines, sporting events, those kind of things, those companies had a big drop in sales, had furloughed employees or reduced operations, and really put all plans on hold. It's really hard to think about reinvesting and reinventing when you've been hit as hard as those print providers were hit if they were servicing those industries. A lot of others got an initial shock and a downtick in their business, but they said, you know, we're sticking with our original plan, but we're going to delay implementation because we're not achieving the levels of revenue that we had originally put into our plan. Fully understandable. Now a lot of companies are saying, I've got to develop a new plan, new priorities based on these new business conditions, based on what we're faced out there, that print may not come back to the levels we saw before the pandemic. And that print that does come back might be radically different than what it was before the pandemic. And so call it the new normal, an overused phrase, but what will it look like when we come out of the pandemic, when a vaccine is available and when it's run its course and we're back to some level of normality in our daily lives. So if we go on and look at a top 100 shop survey that was done by Printing News, they asked all of these shops in the next 12 months, which of the following represent your best new business opportunities? Now, right at the top there, 37% said hiring new salespeople. And we're going to come back to that later in the presentation. 36% said acquiring another company. And we do see that some companies are looking at it and going, my volume of business has dropped. Maybe I can combine with somebody else and we'll be a stronger entity in this new post-COVID world that we're headed for. But I think a lot of things that were in the Inkjet Summit kind of show themselves here in this chart. This one, customized, personalized, or variable data printing jobs, was mentioned by 30% of the people in the survey. And that is a pretty large percentage when you consider the fact that that was, you know, going from offset to inkjet and to toner, you know, that customized, personalized, and variable data printing jobs was going to be more and more of an issue going forward. We also see that adding digital printing equipment was mentioned by 23% of the people in this survey. And those people are going to be putting in digital printing equipment when they get the resources to be able to do that. And then finally, looking at automating production. And again, because of the constraints with labor, that people are going to be adding automation as a result of this. So I think that there is alignment with this survey and with the Inkjet Summit presentation about what we're likely to see going forward. So we want to talk today about 3 routes to success in this COVID-impacted print industry. We really see it as increasing revenue. Obviously, anybody that lost a lot of revenue during the pandemic is looking to restore that level of revenue going forward. We're also looking at decreasing cost and getting ever sharper in terms of keeping production costs low and the value of print really high, so that we can continue to compete with other methods of communication. And last but not least, increasing efficiency, getting more units of output for less input, also part of the game of getting stronger in a post-COVID world. So the first one here, we want to talk about increasing revenue. We really want to focus on 3 things: new applications, new markets, and new sales approaches. So let's take a look at some of the things that we could do, some ideas of what we could do to generate revenue going forward. Number 1, we see COVID-related printing, particularly in the near term, still being a viable option for a lot of printers. There's not only large format printing with signage and floor graphics and information that is being provided once you go into a storefront or retail, particularly as things are opening up. But there's also a need for small format printing. There's also a need for leaflets and brochures and examples of that we're communicating the COVID-related messages that apply to that particular outlet. There's also this demand for short-run, personalized, and variable data jobs. You know, their longer-run jobs are probably going to give way to more personalized, customized communications, and being more personalized means variable data as a result. And that is not easy to do on an offset printing operation, even with shells and looking at imprinting. Also, a revenue-generating idea is to diversify the business to look at other markets. For instance, prototype and short-run packaging. We're seeing a good demand for packaging through COVID, and we're seeing this idea of short-run packaging being something that's hard for existing package printing companies to fulfill. They're used to doing long runs. They're set up to do long runs. They don't have the capability to really pursue short runs. So we see that as an opportunity for a lot of operations. Wide format graphic displays. A lot of companies added wide format. There are certainly sign and display graphic printers who are specific to that segment, but we've seen a lot of commercial printers get into wide format, and we're seeing that as a continuing trend. Partnering or outsourcing work from others. Sometimes we outsource work when we don't have the capabilities, but looking for work that we could bring in-house from others might be a way of leveraging our capability, our excess capacity, our ability to partner and or work with others to bring in more work. And then lastly, this idea of hiring or training sales staff, because if we add short-run personalized jobs, prototype packaging, wide format graphic displays, we're going to have to train our sales staff, perhaps hire new staff to be able to pursue those markets. So those are just some revenue-generating ideas that we can look at as we prepare for what's ahead. The next phase, talking about decreasing costs. Here we're looking at reducing material waste. We're talking about reducing energy usage and also reducing labor. So here's some examples of how we could look at cost reduction ideas. Number 1, maybe consolidate suppliers. Maybe you have a number of different suppliers, one for this particular line, one for another particular line, but maybe it's possible to consolidate those suppliers, that buying power, that relationship that you have with your supplier, and get lower cost as a result of that consolidation. Make-ready costs are also very high. We didn't really talk about it before, but the cost of paper is going up and likely to go higher. And we may see some mills close, and there may be a reduction in the amount of capacity for paper. That means that make-ready costs, particularly in an offset operation, can be very costly because a lot of it is couple of hundred sheets of make ready to get up to color and registration. So if we could reduce that make ready, and that would couple right along with going to short run and personalized communications, we're going to have that as a cost reduction, maybe a way to help fund any kind of an inkjet investment. We're also going to need to evaluate our energy consumption and use. And here we see the big light bulb, which looks like an incandescent tube, but LED is one of the ways that we can look at going from reducing our energy consumption and use. And there's other things in the plant where we look at operating costs and where the energy is consumed and used, and maybe there's a way that we can reduce our utility bills as a part of a cost reduction initiative. Also reducing processing and maintenance costs. If we have a processor where we're in our plate making operation, we not only have the cost of that processing, we have the regular maintenance on that unit and the labor that goes into it. So we have kind of three things going on that are a cost center that we may want to look at reducing the maintenance requirement and getting lower costs. That brings us to the third area, which is gaining efficiencies. So if we can save time or labor hours, if you will, by producing the work faster, getting more output per shift, more output per machine, right? Or we can reduce the downtime on that machine, whether that's the regular maintenance or that's the periodic maintenance or that's due to the machine actually going down and needing repair, then we're going to be able to gain more efficiency. And then certainly anything we can automate and do faster and more reliably than we can with labor is also going to help us with that gain in efficiency. So what can we do here? What's some of the efficiency ideas? Well, we could increase print speeds. When we're talking about analog printing, those kinds of speeds are probably set, but we all know that some of the innovations in offset printing have resulted in even higher print speeds. We also see that on the digital front. Print speeds initially with both toner and inkjet were relatively slow by comparison to analog, but we've seen those print speeds go up and up as innovation comes into particularly the inkjet arena. Improving system reliability and getting the downtime reduced or the uptime increased. The more that machine is up, because it's reliable, because it's got regular and periodic maintenance, because it's got cleaning cycles and routines kind of built in, then you're going to get overall system reliability and uptime to a higher extent than you are today. That's going to, again, get you more output per shift. Automating material handling. This comes in, not only with the ability of people to handle materials, but the fact that you can, when you automate it, you actually create a more reliable and uptime system. I know on some of the material handling systems, it used to take, let's say, 30 seconds for a human to do it. Initially, automation got that down to like 20 seconds. We're now seeing material handling time going down in a wide format operation to like 10 seconds. And so that makes a big difference on efficiency as a result. Also, reducing the number of touches that an order coming into house can get to the print floor. So web to print solutions, making that a little bit more seamless, streamlining the process, another way that you can gain efficiency. So how can Fujifilm help you in this journey? When we look at some of the Fujifilm solutions and some of the things that we can help with GAA members. On the short run personalized printing side, we have two solutions. One is the Fujifilm Samba imprinting solution, and there you see it. It retrofits onto an offset press. It can do barcoding, it can do QR codes, it can do indicias, it can do a number of different print applications on an offset printing press, therefore giving it some short run, if not personalized, printing capability. And we see more and more offset printers moving offset work, short run, over to production inkjet presses like the Fujifilm J Press. Here, the 750S is a sheet fed press, B2 size. it is a standalone solution that can go right alongside an offset operation that might also include toner. The point here is that you can meet the need for short-run personalized printing with some of these solutions. When we talk about the capabilities of, let's say, the J-Press, I know this chart is hard to read. It's called A Day in the Life of the J-Press 750S. Along the bottom are a number of different print applications, everything from brochures to leaflets, calendars, pocket folders, all kinds of different print applications that can come off of this production inkjet press. But perhaps most importantly is what you see in the upper right-hand corner here, which is, which is the J-Press 750S summary on the left, showing 24,117 pages. That's actual production pages. When you look at the right-hand side and you talk about offset equivalent, you're talking about 24,800 wasted sheets of make-ready based on this particular example. You're talking about 496 printing plates. You know, you're talking about all those make-readies for all those jobs and the hours, you know, required to get up to make-ready. It's not uncommon these days to find make-ready time exceeds print time. So there's a limitation to how many jobs you can get on and off an offset press in a certain amount of time, whereas with inkjet, when you hit the button, you're actually going to right to production and you're not having any make-ready as a result. Wide format printing. Again, I mentioned that many commercial printers are getting into wide format. It's still a growth market. There's still opportunities. I would suggest to you that if you're doing small format work for a client, that campaign probably includes some element of wide format in addition to the smaller print format work. Many times, if a commercial printer doesn't have wide format capability and hasn't diversified into it, or is not outsourcing it as a service to their clients, that wide format work is going somewhere else. So whether it's working more closely with a partnering company or whether it's investing yourself in wide format printing capabilities, be it the roll capacity, noted here by the Fujifilm Acuity LED, which is the 1600 series, 64-inch roll printer, or we're talking about a flatbed printer with a full 4-foot by 8-foot print bed, or even larger and faster platforms than what's pictured here. The capability of diversifying your business, getting into wide format, and offering that to your clients is another revenue-generating opportunity. As we mentioned before about revenue generation, short-run package printing. You can do package printing on that same Fujifilm Acuity series printer. And in prototyping, you can use the FlexPack system, which is a joint system with Oris and Fujifilm that we bring to printers, where you can actually do proofing package systems or short-run packaging right on the press, right from the software system that's provided as a result of that. So you can start small and offer that to your clients or new clients, and then build up to a greater package printing capability if that's where you want to take your business. Cost reduction initiatives, one of the biggest things we see is this move to processless plates. And Fujifilm's Superior ZD is the third generation processless plate that we have. And the reason that people are moving to processless plates simply is it eliminates the need for the processor. There's no cleaning, there's no maintenance, therefore there's no effluent, there's no water used, the labor hours are reduced as a result of not having the cleaning and the maintenance routines. Again, no chemistry, good for the environment, no power requirement, so you're going to be able to save energy, no wastewater. So all around, processless plates offer an advantage over traditional thermal or even baked plates, which we see with still some clients out there. And then the automation innovations that we mentioned earlier. This is a robotic material handling system on our Onset X3. It is our fastest, most productive wide format printer. The print bed on here is 5 feet wide by 10 feet long. And what you see there are dual robotic arms, one that takes the printed material from the stack, puts it onto the bed, and then that robot arm draws back, and the takeoff arm once the printing is completed, moves it over to the finished stack. And so without operator intervention, this is where I was talking about before, we get the handling time down to about 10 seconds, and that really gets us a lot of printed output per hour, and one operator being able to maintain this machine, run this machine, do the changeovers when it comes to different substrates. It is really our most productive, highest speed and most productive wide format device. So the challenge question here is, what will you do differently to thrive in a COVID impacted print industry? If we look forward to that new normal, what do you think that'll look like given your existing client base? And hopefully with these ideas that we've provided today, we've given you some ideas to generate additional revenues, some ideas to reduce your cost and be even that much more competitive in a print industry that probably has more capacity in the short run than what is needed for the demand that we're seeing, and certainly that efficiency gain given the pressure that we're going to have on labor going forward and also on cost going forward. So whether it's revenue, cost, efficiency, or a strategy to pursue all three, doing something differently will enable you to not just survive, but thrive in the world we're living in now and the world we foresee into the future. So with that, Lori, that's all I have. If there are any questions, we can certainly try and answer them here.
Yes, so please feel free to ask any questions. If you can either do it just openly or through the Q&A. I don't see any popping up.
It's a lot to digest in a very short period of time. Our goal today was to generate some ideas, to give you some feel for what we're seeing as print industry trends, where the demand is headed, and where we see opportunities for growth and opportunities to change our operations, streamline, reduce our costs, and improve our efficiencies along the way.
Well, we certainly want to say thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for your current business. The presentation has been recorded, and I think that John's going to be sending out the link again. So if you wanted to reference any of the material included, you certainly can. If you do have any questions that pop up, please get a hold of me or John, and John will get a hold of me. And thank you once again. We appreciate your time, and we certainly hope that this was helpful.